So coming up soon is going to be UFC Fight Night Almeida versus Lewis in Brazil, and this is going to be a very, very good card, and I'm very much looking forward to it. And before I do give you guys my predictions for every single fight on the card, I do have an announcement to make. I am recording this super early. This fight card is actually on next weekend, not this weekend, but it is because over the next few weeks I do have exams. If you guys don't know, I am a university student, so I do have exams over the next few weeks. And I'm really trying to study pretty hard for them, so I'm going to be putting YouTube just to the side for a few weeks because I really do need to focus on these exams. And then after that, we'll be getting back into YouTube. Unfortunately, I will be punished by a absolutely terrible YouTube algorithm, but it is all part of the process, unfortunately. But I do plan on coming back with some pretty banger videos. I've got some pretty good video ideas, but they are ideas that will take quite a bit of research from me, and that is time, which I kind of need to be spending studying right now. Before we do get into my predictions though, I do have a couple of sponsorships for the video. Of course, you've got my BetUS link there, 125% sign up bonus, but I do have a Bet Online link as well, which you can sign up for a 100% bonus. And as well as that, you do have the 3-day We1Picks free trial, where you do get access to all of the We1Picks premium membership content for 3 days completely free. Sign up with the code ARTEM and you can cancel it at any time, including over that 3-day free trial period. And that is all in the description as well. And now, with all of that being said, let's now get into the predictions for this card in Brazil, which is going to be a banger. Depending on how busy I am and how, up to date with my study I am, I might not actually watch this card live, which will suck. But I'm looking forward to it. We've got Caio Fernandes taking on Marc Diakiese. This is a fight I'm looking forward to. I did go out there and do quite a bit of tape study on Caio Fernandes. Now, he is coming off a loss a couple of fights ago, but it was a very long time ago to Luan Sardina, who hasn't fought since, which is odd, because he looked like a pretty good prospect. He did beat Caio Fernandes. Now, Fernandes had success in round 1, but Sardina was kind of able to outstrike him in rounds 2 and 3. And since then, he's just been getting knockouts in the first round. This guy has absolutely crazy power in those kicks. He got that body kick KO over an undefeated fighter. And then he took on Felipe Douglas, kind of head kicked him out of a weird clinch position and just knocked him out cold. I am going to go with Marc Diakiese in this matchup, though. The thing about Caio Fernandes is recently I wasn't really able to see his takedown defense at all, and Marc Diakiese, although coming into the UFC as a very exciting Muay Thai striker, all of a sudden recently he has become a wrestler, and the first kind of example of that was when he shot for that takedown over Rafael Elves. Got submitted by guillotine early on, but now he dominated Borchev with the wrestling. He dominated Hadzovic with the wrestling. Very boring fight, not fun to watch. And then he did lose 2 fighters that just were a little bit better than him. And very oddly enough, Michael Johnson kept the fight on the feet and was just able to outstrike him and really pressure him. That is Diakiese, where that's not really a problem he's really had in the past with his striking necessarily. Now, it's almost like he's regressed a little bit in the striking to kind of make up for the wrestling, but I still do think that we're going to see Diakiese get takedowns on Caio Fernandes. As I said earlier, I couldn't really see a lot of tape of Fernandes having to defend takedowns. When he did lose the fight, it wasn't really like he got out-grappled. He kind of got outstruck in 2 out of the 3 rounds. So I'm going to go Diakiese. If Fernandes wins, it's going to be by KO. It's going to be a fun fight, something to look forward to. Well, a fun fight if Fernandes wins. It's going to be quite boring if Diakiese wins. I'm picking him to win by decision by out-wrestling his opponent, Caio Fernandes. Now we've got Monsterrat Conejo Ruiz taking on Eduarda Moura. Now, Eduarda Moura's off the Contender Series, a massive favorite here. She looked absolutely amazing on the Contender Series, completely dominated her opponent, who was 5-0 at the time. Dominated her with her wrestling and grappling, and just looked like a really, really good force to keep your eye out for in the future of the UFC. Now, what's interesting about Moura is if you do try and do tape study to her fights prior to Dana White's Contender Series, you're not going to find anything. I did find something. I believe it was this fight here against Eduarda Santana. I found this fight on Reddit. That was the only fight that I could find of hers when I was researching her fight for Dana White's Contender Series. And I still did pick Eduarda Moura, but I wasn't that confident because there was no tape study out there. And then she just dominated Silver. And I am pretty convinced that I think that she could be a very good prospect in the women's strawweight division. Now, women's strawweight's going to be a tough division to come up in, but I do think that she should be able to do it. And it's going to start with a win over Monsterrat Ruiz. I do believe Moura should be able to take out Ruiz. Ruiz is a wrestler. She kind of does thrive in that head and arm throw, which is just memes to death on MMA Twitter, which is kind of funny. But Moura should be able to out-wrestle her. She should be able to out-grapple her. I mean, it's kind of similar in a matchup to the Jacqueline and Amarim fight, where Eduarda Moura is the wrestler and grappler, so is Monsterrat Ruiz, but Eduarda Moura should be the better wrestler and grappler, and I think she should be able to get it done. I'm going to pick Moura to win by finish. Very likely a submission as well, so give me Moura to win that fight there. Probably in the first 2 rounds, to be honest with you. And now we've got Lucas Alexander taking on David Onama. And Lucas Alexander's very interesting to me, because I don't actually know how good he is, to be honest. Like, he come out there against Joanderson Brito, and Brito's a very tough guy to fight on short notice and in your debut as well. And Brito just kind of overwhelmed him, submitted him very early, and then he went out there against Steven Peterson, and he looked really good against Steven Peterson, but then Steven Peterson come out and said that he wasn't training for like 3 months before that fight. And to be honest with you, I actually almost believe him, because Steven Peterson looked absolutely awful in that fight. He looked absolutely terrible, and he made Lucas Alexander look really, really good. Now, with that being said though, Lucas Alexander still did look really good against Steven Peterson. He looked like a pretty technical striker. He was throwing a lot of kicks. He was kind of having his way with Steven Peterson, and Steven Peterson just could not really do anything. And Steven Peterson's still a tough guy, even though, in my opinion, I thought Steven Peterson looks like an absolute shell of himself on that night. He's taking on David Onama. I'm not the biggest fan of David Onama, because, my goodness, that was probably the most cringe celebration I've ever seen in my life when he did KO Gabriel Santos. But he did KO Gabriel Santos. Now, Gabriel Santos was looking pretty good in that fight, but Santos is a very, very good fighter. I think we all can agree on that, even though he is now 0-2 in the UFC. But as for David Onama, very hit or miss fighter, you know. He did lose to Mason Jones, but that was a situation where, although he lost, he looked really, really good in a loss and upper weight class. He went out there to beat Gabriel Benitez, landing a fantastic combo. Multiple punches landed on Gabriel Benitez in that KO win. And then he beat Garrett Armfield. Now we know that Armfield is actually pretty good, but at bantamweight, that was a short notice replacement. And then he took on Nate Landwehr, and he gassed out, man. He gassed out really badly against Nate Landwehr, but I don't think we have that problem, because I'm going to go with Onama to find the finish over Lucas Alexander. As I said, I don't know how good Lucas Alexander really is. Honestly, we're probably going to find out, but I do believe that David Onama on his best night is absolutely better than Lucas, and I do like the finishing ability of Onama. I like the danger. I like the aggressiveness in round 1, so I'm actually going to kind of bank on an Onama finish early in this fight, round 1 or 2. I think he might be able to overwhelm Alexander, and that is my pick for that fight. And now we move on to the first of many. I do have multiple underdog picks on this card. Normally, I can go through lots of cards and not have underdog picks, but as you guys know, I pick fights based on who I think's going to win, not on the odds. And this is a tough one, man, because this is going to be a controversial pick, and I am going to go with Angela Hill. Now, I do understand why people could be very high on Denise Gomes. I do see a way for Denise Gomes to win, but Angela Hill, I think she's going to be a little bit too much too soon for Denise Gomes. In my opinion, although Denise Gomes is going out there and is looking absolutely fantastic, I still think that she's quite green. You know, she made her Dana White's Contender Series fight against Rayane dos Santos only a year ago, and that was a very, very competitive fight with Rayane dos Santos, who has actually now gone on to go on a win streak, and is actually now signed to the UFC herself. If you guys didn't know about that one, she is now in the UFC. She lost to Lom Lukbunmi in a very interesting fight, but we know how good Lukbunmi is. There were some very awkward grappling transitions in that fight as well. Caio's Brener Brazil. Brener Brazil looked pretty bad, to be honest with you. You could tell that Brener Brazil just did not like getting hit at all, and that is what Denise Gomes does. And then she goes out there and she knocks out Yorigi in 20 seconds, and that is also what Denise Gomes does. If you guys don't know what Denise Gomes does, very, very aggressive Muay Thai fighter. She's very, very scrappy, which I don't want to sound disrespectful, but you don't really see that level of scrappiness, like that level of meanness in a lot of women's fighters, and Denise Gomes is mean. She's going to come forward. She's going to bomb away. She's got that Muay Thai aggressive sort of style, but I think that she's still very green, and I do think that Angela Overkill Hill, I just read her nickname, sorry, is a big step up in competition for Denise Gomes. Now, yes, she KO'd Yasmin Yauriki. But she was a massive, massive underdog in that fight for a reason. A lot of people, including myself, thought that Yauriki would have been able to outstrike her. I think that we're going to see Angela Hill come over here into Brazil, into Denise Gomes' home country, and outstrike Denise Gomes for 3 rounds. I think Angela Hill is going to be on the back foot for the entire fight. She's going to have to keep this fight at range, which I think she should be able to do. And I do believe that she can win a striking matchup between her and Denise Gomes. Now, I do believe, as I said, it's going to be a little bit too much too soon for Denise. I do love Denise Gomes as a fighter. Like, she is so fun to watch. Like, she looks super scary. She is scrappy. But as soon as this fight was made, like, people were laughing at me when I did say this. As soon as the fight was booked, I was like, this is going to be too much for Gomes, and that is why I'm going to be going with Hill. I do believe that Hill, although she's got a bad record, I think that fighters like Denise Gomes, who just aren't quite ready for the top 15 of women's 115 pounds, are the fighters that Hill gets by. So I'm going to go with Hill by decision. But if Denise Gomes can knock out Angela Hill, I will be incredibly impressed. I wouldn't mind seeing it, but the pick is Angela Hill to win by decision in this matchup. And now we can move on to Vitor Petrino versus Modestas Bukauskas. And Vitor Petrino, my goodness, this guy is very, very frustrating to pick his fights. Now, I have picked all of his fights. I picked him to beat Bellato. I picked him to beat... Actually, I picked Anton Turkalj to beat him. Very bad pick in hindsight, huh? Very bad pick. But that was a close fight, I guess. And then I did pick him to beat Marcin Prachnio. But my problem with Vitor Petrino is, all of a sudden, this guy's a wrestler. Trust me, this guy did not wrestle, like, at all in his previous fights before the Contender Series. He's just KOing everybody, he's throwing bombs and KOing everybody, and all of a sudden against Anton Turkalj, a fighter who I thought was going to be the better grappler than him, he's shooting for takedowns on Turkalj. Very odd fight, just a very, very weird fight, to be honest with you. And then against Marcin Prachnio, he was really frustrating me because he had so many opportunities to knock out Prachnio on the feet. You could tell that Vitor Petrino was just hitting Marcin Prachnio so much harder than Prachnio was hitting him. Like, Prachnio was landing what I would consider like some full power bombs on Petrino, and Petrino was going forward, and every single time Petrino landed a big shot on Prachnio would stumble, he would react, and Petrino wouldn't go for it. He'd keep going for his takedowns. And I was like, man, like, Petrino, like, I know that you can get the KO, man, and he just didn't do it. But it's not a bad thing. He's becoming a much more well-rounded fighter, and I do think because of that, his longevity and also his potential is going to be a bit higher as well, because I know Petrino can scrap. I know Petrino can land bombs, and I know he can KO fighters. But with Modestas Bukauskas here, Bukauskas is a very good striker. He strikes from range, very long reach. I mean, so does Petrino, but he's a pure striker. Never, ever attempted a takedown in the UFC, to my knowledge. I know that he's never got a takedown in the UFC, and he does have good takedown defense. But my issue with this matchup with Modestas Bukauskas is, even though the fight is going to be potentially on the feet, if he can defend the takedowns against Vitor Petrino, he's still going to be in trouble. Because Vitor Petrino is an absolute brawler on the feet, crazy power, decently technical, not super technical, but he's got good power, and he can wrestle, so that wrestling threat is going to be there, which is going to open up opportunities for KOs and also just open up opportunities for takedowns as well. I think that Modestas Bukauskas, I mean, it just comes down to Petrino, man. I think Petrino's going to be able to dictate where the fight goes. I think he can take it down if he wants to, and I think he can keep it on the feet if he wants to, and Bukauskas is going to have to keep thinking about that. So I like Petrino in the fight. I don't mind Petrino KO, which is what most people are going with. I'm actually just going to go with Petrino decision. Now, I understand Petrino's not really a decision fighter, but Bukauskas is a pretty tough guy. I think we're going to see Petrino get multiple takedowns, but also land some good shots on the feet as well. Just kind of win a decision in this matchup. And now we can move on to Zaleski taking on Rinat Fakhretdinov. And you've kind of got to go with Rinat Fakhretdinov here. Now, if the fight stays on the feet, it could get interesting, because we do know that Elizeu Zaleski is a very, very good fighter. I mean, he does have that really impressive win over Benoit Saint Denis, which has aged it very well, but that was on short notice, I believe, for Benoit, upper weight class as well. But we know that Zaleski can strike. We know that he can land pretty technical strikes. He beat Abubakar Magomedov. That was just a weird fight, to be honest with you. But Zaleski, he does have that capoeira style, that kind of Brazilian dance fighting, Miguel Pereira, same sort of style there. Kind of a lot of kicks, a lot of very interesting, flashy moves that he can throw. And on the feet in a pure striking matchup, I know that Rinat does have insane power, but Rinat's not the most technical fella in the world. So in a pure striking matchup, maybe Elizeu Zaleski could make something happen, but that's not where this fight's going to take place. I know that Zaleski's got good takedown defense. Rinat's a beast, man. Like, I feel like we're going to see Rinat Fakhretdinov get a top 15 opponent after he beats Zaleski. I'm picking Rinat to win. I'm picking Rinat to win inside the distance. Coming into the UFC, though, with Rinat, I had so many questions with him, because if you do look into his record, there is quite a bit of interesting matchmaking, I guess you could say. He's 15-2, fighting, 3-3, 1, like, there are questions to be made. Like, that record has been filled up a bit, but now that he's in the UFC, absolutely dominated Brian Battle, finished Kevin Lee in a minute. I mean, I think that the sky's the limit for Rinat at this point, He's not too old. He's 32 years old. He's not super young, but I think we're going to see Rinat in the top 15 at some point soon. I think he gets past Zaleski and earns a shot at the top 15 in the UFC. So give me Rinat. I'm going to go with a finish as well. I'm going to go with Rinat, probably by like ground and pound TKO, kind of like Brian Battle style, except maybe a little bit more ground and pound TKO-y, if that makes any sense. Now we can move on to another underdog that I do have. We've got Daniel Marcos taking on Victor Hugo. To my knowledge and to my understanding right now, Victor Hugo is the underdog in this fight. I believe he's like a slight underdog. I don't think the odds are too wide for this one. It is short notice. Victor Hugo has taken this fight on short notice, and there are so many red flags with both guys, in my opinion, I actually can't remember if I picked Daniel Marcos to beat Davy Grant or not. But Davy Grant probably should have got that decision. Let's be real. But I do appreciate the activity of Marcos. We come into the UFC of Contender Series, and he's fought twice since. I can respect that. Very impressive 15-0 record. Victor Hugo, very impressive 24-4 record. And he did have that big win over Eduardo Matias Torres Court. And I did pick Victor Hugo in that matchup. Very low confidence, because the tape... I mean, there's tape out there. There is. But it is old, man. This guy took so much time off. And there are fights out there. You can find fights out there. But one thing I noticed about his Contender Series performance is that Victor Hugo, in a good way and a bad way, is an incredibly awkward fighter. And I don't know how to describe his striking style. Because when he was fighting Eduardo Torres, now Eduardo Torres is a striker. He is a boxer. I believe he was going for takedowns on Hugo, which was just silly. But in that matchup, it was kind of like Victor Hugo was like blitzing, and then he would wait, and then he would blitz, and then he would wait. So there was kind of a lot of time in between Victor Hugo actually attacking that someone like Daniel Marcos could score points on him, kicking the legs, kicking the body, just kind of working away at Victor Hugo when he's kind of doing nothing but waiting. But what Victor Hugo is he is a grappler. He does have that knee bar win over Eduardo Torres. Before that, I believe he had a knee bar within like a minute or something like that. Yeah, he did. He had a heel hook in 23 seconds. And that is his signature move. He has said that's his signature move. He's got another one in a minute and 5 seconds in 2015, like a long time ago. But the point is that Victor Hugo, he's a grappler. Now, he does like to strike a little bit. I mean, his nickname is Striker. I don't know if that's just to put people off, but Victor Hugo's going to go for takedowns here, and I think he's going to try and grapple Daniel Marcos. Now, Daniel Marcos... he did take on Brandon Lewis, who I thought was going to try and take him down. And he did take on Simon Oliveira, but Simon Oliveira, we kind of learned, is not that great, to be honest with you. Simon Oliveira, very impressive record, pure grappler, but just could not get it done over Marcos at all. Hugo's going to be the first guy that I think is going to be a big grappling threat to Marcos. And he's actually going to have the ability to get the fight down to the ground. And I think that's going to be a pretty big deal. So I'm going to go with Victor Hugo in this matchup by submission. We've got no idea how good Daniel Marcos' grappling really is. I mean, I've never really seen him taken down on the regional scene when he was beating these guys. They weren't that good, and they were way smaller than him. Like, these guys were like, if Daniel Marcos is 5'7", this guy, Gaston Manzaro, must be 5'2". I mean, he was tiny. And, that fight was on the feet. So... it's going to be interesting to see. I think that we're going to see Victor Hugo get a submission in this fight. I mean, big Tapology underdog. I think the odds are pretty close, though. So give me Victor Hugo to win this matchup. And now we have Elves Brener taking on Esteban Ridovic. A fight which we do have pretty close odds for. And you guys know, I love Esteban Ridovic, man. I'm a big Esteban Ridovic fan. I think I overhyped him a lot. And I do apologize for that. But if you do watch Esteban Radovic's fights, they are so fun, man. And I've got a soft spot for fighters that go out there and just have incredibly fun fights. I mean, if you watch his fight against Thomas Paul, probably one of the most fun Contender Series performances I've ever seen. I did pick him to beat Loic Radzhabov. I thought that Radzhabov was going to gas out and Radovic was going to get a late finish. That actually almost happened, but Radzhabov did ultimately win a very close decision, which, you know, some people think Radovic could have won, but, you know, I have a biased opinion towards Radovic, and I think Radzhabov won that fight, so it is what it is. And then he took on Kamala Kirk, got out-grappled in round 1, had me absolutely panicking. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, I've overhyped a fraud. He did come back and win, but it was just not a good looking performance, in my opinion, over Kamala Kirk. And that's Esteban Radovic's biggest problem. His takedown defense is not great. His grappling is actually pretty good, but his takedown defense is awful. I know Loic Radzhabov is absolutely gigantic for 155 pounds, but he was getting Radovic down with absolute ease. Kamala Kirk was able to get him down and out-grapple him in round 1. And Elves Brener, I don't know what happened to Elves Brener, but he went from going 0-3 on takedowns to Zabira Takugov, to just taking down Guram Kutasadze, not at will, but he was able to get Guram down like a couple of times in that matchup, and they weren't really the most technical kind of takedowns, just kind of driving into them, but that's a big win, you know, and maybe I'm gonna overhype Brener a little bit because of that big win, but you've got to admit, everybody was on Guram. Guram was a massive favorite in that fight. I was on Guram. I mean, if some people thought that Guram was a top 15 level guy, I mean, Guram's a great fighter, and that's a fantastic win that Brener was able to pick up. And Brener was having success on the feet and in the wrestling. And if Brener does go out there and tries to take down Radovic and mix in his very aggressive shooter box sort of style striking, he's going to be able to get Esteban Radovic down to the ground. And I think they should be able to out-grapple him. Now, I do have a little bit of an issue with Brener at 155. He's fought at 145 in the past. I think that Elves Brener is too small for lightweight. He looked absolutely tiny compared to Guram. He didn't look super big compared to Zabira Takugov, who was a former featherweight coming up. I believe Takugov actually missed weight. Takugov probably should have won that fight, but I think that the UFC had just had enough of Takugov pulling out of fights and missing weight all the time, so they got rid of him. But you guys kind of understand the breakdown. Brener, very aggressive Muay Thai striker. Radovic, very aggressive striker. If this is a striking fight, it's going to be the fight of the night, but I think that Brener's going to wrestle and grapple, and I think he's going to be able to win using that. I'm going to go Brener by decision, but a submission wouldn't surprise me too much. I feel like if Radovic wins, it's kind of going to have to be by KO, which would be fun, but I'm going to go with Brener, and I don't know what it is about Brener, man. Hopefully he can kind of gain some muscle, maybe, or maybe he can, like, try and get down to 145. I do not think that Brener is a big 155-pounder at all. So let's move on to Ismael Bonfim taking on Vince Pichel. Now, I like Bonfim. I like the Bonfim brothers. I think Ismael Bonfim's a very, very good fighter. And I was quite confident on him to beat Benoit Saint-Denis. And Benoit Saint-Denis fans, let me know about that one. When Benoit Saint-Denis had a very good performance against Bonfim. But in my opinion, dude, if you watch Bonfim fight Benoit Saint-Denis, Bonfim fought so dumb. So dumb. It was so confusing as to kind of what he did. But Bonfim went out there and Benoit Saint-Denis was smacking his body. And Bonfim was kind of like beckoning him on. And was just trying to kind of counter him. A very bad game plan from Bonfim. He eventually got submitted in round number 1. But I think that against Vince Pichel, although Pichel's a wrestler and is going to try and get him down, I think Bonfim's takedown defense should be good enough to keep the fight on the feet against Pichel. And he will be a much better striker than Vince Pichel. Now, Ismael Bonfim, just like his brother, actually, I think, yeah, Ismael Bonfim, Brazilian national boxing champion, just like his brother Gabriel Bonfim. I believe he had a 14-2 amateur record, 4-1 pro boxing record. That could be a little bit incorrect, but I know he had a good amateur boxing record, and he's got a 4-1 pro record. Decent grappler himself. I think he can outbox Vince Pichel, kind of like he did to Terrence McKinney, but Terrence McKinney was just nowhere near as technical as Bonfim. I think it's going to be a little bit more competitive, but I do think that we're going to see a knockout from Bonfim in round 1 or 2. I do believe in Bonfim, man. He's only 27 years old. This guy's got time to improve, and I think he's going to finish Pichel by KO. Now, Pichel's a tough guy. I don't think he's actually been KO'd before. I could be incorrect on that one, but he's almost 41 years old. He has been KO'd before. He's almost 41 years old. I think we're going to see Bonfim keep the fight on the feet, and he's going to box up Pachow in this matchup. And now we have Rodolfo Vieira taking on Armor Petrosian. Now, no matter who wins this fight, they're gonna look great, because if I pick Rodolfo Vieira and he wins, it's gonna be like a good pick, you know. But if he loses, it's gonna be like, oh my goodness, why did you pick Armor Petrosian? It's such a bad take. And if I pick Armor Petrosian and he loses, it's because Rodolfo Vieira has absolutely dominated him in the grappling and probably submitted him in round 1. And if he wins, it's because he's kept the fight on the feet and outstruck Rodolfo Vieira and maybe even knocked him out. So it kind of comes down to, do you think Armor Petrosian can keep this fight on the feet? Because we all know that Armor Petrosian is going to be the better striker in this matchup. And we all know that Rodolfo Vieira is going to be the better grappler in this matchup. It just comes down to, do you think that the multiple-time world Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu champion can get Armor Petrosian down to the ground? And I am saying yes. Very, very low confidence pick, but I am picking Rodolfo Vieira. My issue with Armor Petrosian is his takedown defense statistically is very bad. Now, that can come down to the Caio Borralho fight, where Borralho was able to get him down quite often. But I think that Vieira can get the fight down to the ground. You know, I do believe that he can take Armor down and submit, and I do understand that Armor Petrosian is going to be so much better at striking than Rodolfo Vieira. I do understand that Rodolfo Vieira's cardio in the past has looked quite bad, but I do think he can get it done. I'm going to go Vieira. I think he gets the fight down to the ground against Armor Petrosian. This is a little bit more of a shorter breakdown, because that's kind of how the fight is going to go. Grappler versus striker. Both guys are levels above each other in kind of their respected areas. But I do believe Vieira is going to get Petrosian down. And if he can get Petrosian down and get on top, I'm going to go Vieira to get an arm triangle choke in this one here, just like he did against Cody Brundage. But Brundage pulled guillotine on him. It was just a bit silly, wasn't it? But yeah, I'm going to go Vieira. Very low confidence pick. I mean, Petrosian has a very good chance of knocking him out. Very good chance of just keeping the fight on the feet and outstriking him. But I believe that Vieira can get it down. So give me Vieira by submission. Very, very low confidence pick, I will say again. But let's see how it goes. And this is another fight here, which we're just going to kind of see how it goes. You got Caio Borralho taking on Abus Magomedov. Now, Abus Magomedov, oh, how the tables have turned. This guy was super hyped up, man. I think he was like a tiny underdog to Sean Strickland, who's now the champion of the world, by the way. Beat Israel Adesanya. He was plus 125. And 28% of people on Tapology picked him. And I considered picking Abus Magomedov. I did. And he looked really, really good against Strickland for the first round. And then he gassed out really, really badly. And I don't understand how his cardio is so bad when he's such an elite fighter. Because that's what he is. If you do watch Sean Strickland versus Abus Magomedov looks incredible for round 1. And then he gasses out and Strickland just takes over and finishes him at the end of round 2. Very good win from Strickland. Not the worst performance. Oh, it was a overall terrible performance from Magomedov. But if you do watch round 1, I mean, you can see that he's talented. You can see that he's good. You can see that he's a solid fighter. But man, how does he have that cardio as an elite guy, you know, in the UFC? And, you know, how was he training? You know, because it's kind of the thing with me. You know, if you guys don't know, I had my boxing fight last weekend. Like 99% of it, I mean, like it's a lot of cardio. Like even when I'm sparring, even when I'm hitting the bag, even when I'm hitting the pads, it's all kind of cardio. So how is Abus Magomedov going to training and just not like getting physically fit and ready? It doesn't make sense to me at all. But this fight comes down to, do you think Abus Magomedov knocks out Borralho at round 1? Because he could do that. He will be the better striker. Borralho did actually impress me in his striking against Mikhail Olechechik. And then he eventually did get the win. But Mikhail, I thought looked pretty good. But I thought Borralho looked pretty good on the feet as well in that fight. And maybe Abus Magomedov can knock him out in round 1. But the thing is about Caio Borralho is he's a wrestler and a grappler. And I think in round 1, if he can avoid the shots early and just take down Abus Magomedov and just make Abus work, you know, even if it's boring, even if he's just making Abus Magomedov work against the cage in the clinch, takes him down, makes Abus Magomedov try and stand up over and over again. Abus is going to gas. We know that Abus has no cardio. So I've got Caio Borralho to win inside the distance by submission. He hasn't been able to really get too many finishes in his UFC career. Now, I thought that this guy was very good. He beat Gazier Magadziev, who I did rate pretty highly, and I did pick him to win. I picked Caio Borralho in every single fight of his. He hasn't looked super impressive, but I do believe that he's a guy of the future, a guy that I think could end up being ranked very soon, actually. Maybe with a win over Abus, he'll take a numbered spot. But I've got Borralho in this fight. I think he can get Abus Magomedov down to the ground and submit him. I'm going to say in round 2. I think Abus might have success on the feet in like the first minute, but Borralho's going to get him down, and as I said, just make him work. And make him work. And then Abus is going to be gassed. He's going to have nothing left. And then Borralho's going to submit him in round number 2. And now we've got Rodrigo Nascimento taking on Dontale Mayes. And their first fight was so nice, they had to do the rematch. If you guys do not know, this is a rematch from the fight not even that long ago. In 2020, these guys fought against each other, and Rodrigo Nascimento won that fight by submission. And I do think that Rodrigo Nascimento wins this fight again, just because he's the more well-rounded fighter, to be honest with you. Dontale Mayes is a kickboxer. Very odd sort of kickboxing style for a heavyweight. He throws jumping kicks like he did against Hamdi Abdelwahab. And he throws like spinning kicks on occasion. Like, he's got a lot of kicks in his arsenal. He's a big boy too. He's 6'6" with an 81-inch reach. Rodrigo Nascimento is a very interesting fighter because he did have a couple of split decisions recently, which are just kind of not the most fun fights to watch, really. But what Nascimento does is he strikes and then he wrestles a bit, and I think he's going to do that against Dontale Mayes. I mean, as you guys can tell, I'm not that excited for this fight. I don't know why it's on the main card. Why is this on the main card and Brener versus Brdovic is on the prelims? Why is Rinat Fakhretdinov on the prelims when this is on the main card, actually? This doesn't make sense. The card order of this, the belt orders of this card are very interesting. Like, it does make sense for a lot of these prelims, but you know, like, there are better fights, more exciting fights than these two guys. I guess it's just big guys go boom, huh? But anyway, Nascimento to win. As I said, just because he's the more well-rounded fighter. Quite simply is that. Dontale Mayes takedown defense. He's never really been that great. I think Nascimento is going to exploit that, take him down. It's just going to be heavyweight fight. I mean, I don't know. I'm not that hyped for this fight. Let's move on. So we've got Gabriel Bonfim taking on Nicolas Dalby. Gabriel Bonfim is the man. This guy's good. You guys look at this guy. He is a boxer, and he was a professional Brazilian national boxing champion. He has a 5-0 boxing record as a professional with a title as a boxer. He's actually quite good at boxing, and you don't really see that in his fights because, unlike his brother, who was more of the striker of the two, Bonfim's more of the grappler. This guy has 12 wins by submission and 3 wins by KO, but Bonfim can strike. Now, he does get pressured a little bit on the feet. I mean, the fight against Mune Lezez did not last very long at all, but Lezez and Bonfim went to war, and you could see that Lezez was able to slip a couple of good shots in there, but it really was just because they were swaying and banging, man. He takes on Trevin Giles, pulls off his guillotine again. I mean, this guy is... He's pulling off the guillotine, man. You know, he got that Von Fleur over Trey Waters, which is actually an insane submission if you watch it. Trey Waters has him in a guillotine, and then all of a sudden Trey Waters is tapping. It's very interesting the way that he set that one up. But let's move on to this fight here. Now, Nicolas Dalby, he just keeps winning. He's almost 39 years old, and he just keeps on beating guys down that the UFC wants to keep going. You know, Muslim Salikov's an older guy himself, but Salikov's a guy that's been like borderline top 15 for a long time. And we saw Dalby go out there and beat him. He beat Wally Alves in Brazil. He beat Claudio Silva. Interesting fight, to be fair. But, you know, Claudio Silva recently had that close fight with Arman Sarukian. But, you know, Dalby, and he beat Rodriguez in a fight which very much could be scored to Rodriguez. But when it comes to this fight, though, I just think Bonfim's that good. I mean, I don't want to get too clouded by the hype, but I'm pretty well behind him. I think Gabriel Bonfim is a really, really good fighter, and he's only 26 years old. The UFC haven't rushed him too much, you know, they're giving him good steps up in competition. Dalby's a good step up in competition. Dalby's a guy that, although he's number 25 in the world on Tapology, he is a borderline top 15 guy in the welterweight division in the UFC, and I think that we're going to see Bonfim beat him, you know. Maybe it's not going to be by first round finish, but I think eventually Bonfim's going to finish Dalby in some way. And one thing I will note that would be very impressive, Dalby's never been finished at all. He does go to decision in a lot of his fights, but I think that the guy that's going to be a lot more dangerous is Gabriel Bonfim. Maybe Dalby puts him in some rough spots, but I think we're going to see Bonfim come out on top, man. I think he's that good. So give me Bonfim. I mean, he does pull guillotine, which is concerning, but to be fair, he gets them like every single time, so good for him. I mean, the mounted guillotine of Retrieving Giles was a little bit different, but it was a good way that he set it up. I'm going to go with Gabriel Bonfim here. I think that on the feet, you know, it could be a very interesting fight. Both guys are good strikers. Bonfim, an underrated striker, I would say, in a lot of people's eyes. Maybe I'm overrating his striking, but I do think that he does have a good background, at least to have good striking in MMA. Give me a Bonfim. Give me Bonfim to beat Dalby. I mean, it's going to come down to, can Bonfim get offensive takedowns? Because he's not really getting his submissions based on like takedowns that he's really going for. So give me Bonfim. I'm going to go with him to win. By submission, round 2. I think that now Dalby's going to have a good fight with him. It's going to be very interesting to see how good Bonfim really is. But I'm going to go with him to win by round 2 submission. Now we've got Jailton Almeida taking on Derrick Lewis. Short notice fight. The original fight was going to be Jailton Almeida versus Curtis Blaydes. And that was a fight I was really looking forward to, because I believe in that fight, we would have actually learned how good is Jailton Almeida. Because Jailton Almeida, we know, he's awesome. He's fantastic. I mean, I'm very proud to say I picked Jailton Almeida to win his Dana White's Contender Series fight. I don't believe too many people did that. Way back when in 2021, he was the underdog. Not 17%. That was me. That was me. I did pick Almeida to beat Nasruddinov. Pretty good pick in hindsight, huh? He's turned out to be a pretty good fighter. He's an absolute beast. He was a light heavyweight, moved up to heavyweight, having lots of success. Curtis Blaydes would have tested Almeida, because it would have been Almeida versus a very, very good wrestler. And we would have seen how he kind of went on the feet, because I think Blaydes might have been able to defend some takedowns, keep the fight on the feet. But I think this is a similar stylistic matchup to the Rosenstruck fight. You've got Derrick Lewis. We know what Derrick Lewis does. He knocks people out. He's so fun. We love Derrick Lewis. But the problem is, man, we just saw him get absolutely mauled by Sergey Spivak, who was able to take him down at will. And we've never really seen anyone do that to Derrick Lewis, to be fair. But Spivak just took him down at will, got him down, and just dominated him, really. And I think that Jailton Almeida, unfortunately, is going to do what Spivak did to Lewis and what he did to Rosenstruck, which is a shame. But one thing I will say about Jailton Almeida, and this is what everybody's saying now, Jailton Almeida, before he shoots for a takedown, he throws a front kick. And I know, like, you know, it's something that might be a habit for some fighters. They do it every now and then, but he does it almost every time without fail. So as soon as Derrick Lewis sees that front kick, he should be preparing the nastiest uppercut he's ever thrown in his life, kind of like he did to Curtis Blaydes, because that's his best chance to win the fight. But I think Almeida submits him in round 1. Almeida versus Blaydes would have been legendary. I would like to see that rebooked. I know that you could say maybe Almeida deserves a title shot at this point, but I don't think so. I think you've got to give Almeida Curtis Blaydes, and then we can see. And then we can see how good Jailton Almeida really is. And if he beats Blaydes, title shot time. And I think even then, if he just dominates Blaydes, I mean, Almeida might be a long-lasting champion, but, you know, there's guys like Espinal and Pavlovich around that are going to give him problems. John Jones, if he sticks around, I mean, what's John Jones going to do? I think John Jones might retire after UFC 295, but we'll see. Let me know what you think of that video in the comments below, and with all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Just to re-emphasize, though, this is my last video for a while. I would say for maybe 2 weeks. I mean, I think I'll do a prediction video for 295, but you know, I won't be making any videos this week. I won't be making any videos next week. So, yeah. With all that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching.